sticking around. I appreciate it. My name is Dino Pate. I'm the Assistant Director of Speech and Debate for Simpson College, which is a private liberal arts college in the Des Moines area. But I used to be an active college coach here in Wisconsin at Ripon College, which is how I met Adam and a variety of other folks. And so what I want to do is talk a little bit about the significance of creating good, solid speech topic areas, and then do the interviewing strategies that he made reference to. I'm sort of in a unique position in life. I spent 17 years directing Ripon College's speech and debate program, and then I moved to Des Moines, Iowa to pursue an opportunity with the National Speech and Debate Association, which is why you have the propaganda, as I call it, which I think is still a fine thing to have because it really helps you to fundraise, and it's an opportunity for you to make some really good, strong connections. For those of you who do not have programs, the National Speech and Debate Association is often known for its national tournament, but they also have a lot of online resources. And so those of you who are interested, I would encourage you to check it out at speechanddebate.org is the website. What's unique about the National Speech and Debate Association, and it's even changed, so if you are somebody who used to know it as the NFL, the National Forensic League, from many years ago, the focus has actually changed. They still have a national tournament, which is a qualifying national tournament, and it's a very competitive and wonderful experience, and I enjoy working with it and have done so for over a decade. But the other thing that I really want to focus on, though, for all of your purposes is twofold. One is it's the National Honor Society for Speech and Debate. And so by starting up a chapter and enrolling in students, you can track their points. They receive points for all tournaments, including festival-style tournaments, whether they receive rankings or ratings. For every round of competition, whether they win or they lose, they receive merit points. And by tracking their merit points, once they earn 25 points, then they become an individual member of the National Speech and Debate Association. And that holds value in a lot of different ways. One is it's an honor society, so it's a recognized national honor society for speech and debate. But also it comes with a lot of benefits because of the connection to collegiate programs, which is the other hat that I wear. As the Assistant Director of Speech and Debate for Simpson College, I also like to visit schools and obviously do recruitment for my institution. But we offer scholarships, and a lot of institutions offer scholarships for speech and debate. You do not have to be a national champion in order to earn a scholarship for speech and debate, and it's important that you have that communication with your students. Being a part of the Honor Society through the NSDA is one feature of this. They get free membership in Pi Kappa Delta, which is the collegiate honorary. But they also have the connection to scholarships that speech and debate programs have at colleges and universities such as mine. And they can add up to thousands of dollars every single year. So even though an institution like Simpson, such as other private colleges that you would find even in Wisconsin, may have very high price tags, speech and debate helps to reduce the tuition costs pretty quickly. And we always have a need for students to be involved. And we have a mock trial program. Somebody mentioned mock trial. We have a mock trial program. We have Lincoln Douglas debating styles. We have public forum, which is what you saw here. We have that at the collegiate level. We have parliamentary debate. We have an activity called Ethics Bowl. And I think Ethics Bowl is a terrific activity that you might consider developing into your classrooms, which I'll talk a little bit more in this session on. But we have scholarship opportunities for Ethics Bowl as well, plus all of the speech events. So I encourage you to consider connecting with the NSDA and enrolling in the Honor Society. The other really cool element about it is you have access to resources. And those resources are all online. As students develop free accounts and connect with your school's member account, they have access to full-length textbooks in public forum debate, for example, extemporaneous speaking, interp events. There's an interp database. There are topic analysis papers for the high school debate topics, and a whole host of other resources that are all available online through the student's connection with your school's membership. So that's my sales pitch on either of those. If you're interested in talking more about college speech and debate and scholarships available, or if you are interested in talking more about the NSDA, I'm happy to answer those kinds of questions. And I have a card here that I'll hand out in just a little bit. So let's talk about, and then I want to make sure we have plenty of opportunity for you all to get some input. But let's springboard off of the information literacy side of things, and let's talk about one of my favorite sources. Do any of you read The Week? The Week, which is, yes, actually they still have physical magazines. I know that's remarkable to think about. But there is also the website, theweek.com. It is a subscription-based, but there are lots of free articles on there. There are a couple of things that I would mention right off the bat. The first thing is the Week. One of the things that I really like about the Week is it's a summary of what other newspapers and magazines talk about. And it does use the full spectrum of sources that were listed on that chart. So the National Review will have a perspective, right, about what happened in Las Vegas. But so will the Progressive, so will Mother Jones, so will the New York Times, so will the Wall Street Journal, on and on and on, as well as a number of online sources. One of the things that I found interesting with regard to the topic of the Las Vegas shooting, so if you sign up for the free newsletters for the week, it'll send you a little digest, and it'll say the 10 most important things to know today, and you can sign up for that in business or news or whatever. So they had the 10 most important things to know about the Las Vegas shootings. And one of the things that I noticed was multiple columns, opinions, interesting articles, but then there was the one from 538. Are you familiar with this site, with the statistician, the Adam Silver statistician? Mentioning there are 33,000 gun deaths in the United States every single year. 2/3 of those are suicides. Has nothing to do with mass shooting. Has nothing to do with the kinds of controls that a lot of people have talked about. And the point of the article wasn't to say you shouldn't be talking about this, but instead it's to say we have issues in this country that are cultural, and if you want to get to the real heart of things, you have to include all of the causes for shooting deaths in this country, for all gun deaths, not just for the mass shooting that occurred in Las Vegas. And it's really just a nice chart that says here's what the breakdown is. And despite all of the discussion of this on a national level, which I'm not suggesting it's not an important issue, but his point is that these 59 deaths pale in comparison to the 33,000 that we experience every single year. And so he puts it into perspective. What I like about it is I can read through all of the articles in a single digest in an email and get a good, balanced perspective on a whole range of issues. And so in this particular issue that I just happened to bring with me, it talks about the Catalonian independence from Spain and that vote. It talks about what's going on in Burma right now and the people who are being slaughtered. There are 1 million Rohingya who are Islamic citizens in Myanmar or Burma, and the role of Aung San Suu Kyi. There's the 9/11 University. There's campus rape. There is coin offerings. There's artificial intelligence. There's a science section. Why humans are still evolving. There is even a little cartoon section, and on and on. It's got good books to read, 10 classic works to read. It's got all kinds of different things. I like it because it's a great source for balanced news, but also it's a terrific source for topics, which is really what we're talking about today, is how do we get into all of the interesting and far-ranging topics and significant topics that we might choose to explore. So I like this source because it has a lot of unique topics. Every issue has literally dozens of ideas. And then for my team, and I take issue with, I take items from the week as well as other sources. And then what I do is I've set up a wiki which is just a living, breathing document, right? That's what Wikipedia is a living, breathing document for a particular purpose. I create my own free wiki for my team, and you might want to do the same thing organizationally for your team. You may have a Google site that you use, but I like to use PBWorks. PBWorks.com, you can create a free wiki of your own, and then you can post links to topics like this. And so I have, under each of our college categories, I have a list of topics that students might be interested in, and then the students go, they sign up for a free account. Creating a PBWorks site is free also, and you can post documents, you can post links, and you basically create your own universe, and then students can have access by creating their own accounts. And it's perfectly free. It's just pbworks.com. It stands for peanut butter. The idea behind the site is it's as easy to set up as it is to make a peanut butter sandwich, and it really is. Free account, username, password, email address, and then you've got a blank web page to start creating cool and interesting pages and sites for your team. So for a team management perspective, I like to put a variety of different topics in there under different categories. So the week is one source, but whatever your favorite news sites are, you can certainly post and identify some links there. The other thing is, and in the state of high school speech and debate, I think we're starting to see more and more of this, but we're certainly seeing this in college level speech and debate, and that is that students are pursuing topics that they find to be personally important to them. And I refer to it as identity politics. A lot of interpieces reflect the ethnic or cultural heritage of the students. A lot of the speech topics reflect the heritage or background of the students who are involved. So students who are hunters in the state of Wisconsin, we do have some students who hunt, can actually select topics that are relevant to what they're really interested in. And so part of that is identifying within that realm of significant topics how you can take a topic they might be interested in. Adam used the example of the gun debate and the Second Amendment, and how you can turn that into a discussion point to get to the kinds of arguments that students really want to make, and also to learn more about topics they're interested in. So that is certainly one example of that, but it can be any variety of different types of topics or issues, especially for oratory. I think about immigration debates, for example, and right now, politically, that's a hot button issue and a hot topic. But nevertheless, students can explore an element of the immigration debate and start tackling it in their speeches. They start by you sitting down with them and saying, what do you find is really important to you? What are things that you really identify with as a student? What are topics that you feel passionate about, that you feel that you could maybe move somebody to change or take an action or change an attitude, which is what oratory in particular is all about. And identify with the students and help them to find topics and write speeches that are meaningful for them, that connect to whatever their identity, whatever their interests are. And so I think interviewing with them can help you to get to that point. The other thing, though, is in terms of developing interviews and having the opportunity to meet with people. And I've been doing this with college students for a while, and you can do this with high school students too. What this means is that whenever they pick a particular topic, what you want to do is identify a local expert who has experience in that particular topic, and then set up an interview with them. And there are a lot of advantages to this. One is that student's speech will be truly unique because you are choosing someone from that region or area who has that expertise. And you get them on the record, and all of a sudden you have an expert source that nobody else has, and they're talking about something that is important to both them as well as to the student. So maybe it's an agriculture topic. The student talks to someone like the Secretary of Agriculture and reaches out to their office. What's amazing is a lot of times you think they'll never pay any attention to me. And you're right, a lot of times you'll send an email, it'll fall on deaf ears, you'll call, nobody will call you back. But I had a student who met with Russ Feingold when he did a topic. It was a tough topic, I thought, and we needed his expertise. It was about whether or not we should lower the interest rate for international corporations. And as many of you know, it's about 35% or something like that. And now Trump and others are trying to reduce it into the 20s. Some countries have it in the teens. And we kept reading more and more, and we kept asking ourselves, why is this the number? What is the deal with international corporations, and why 35%? Why not reduce it? Why not be more competitive? And so one of the people that we reached out to was Russ Feingold's office. And because this is an interest of Russ Feingold, we got a response, and we set up a meeting and met with him in Madison at a coffee shop. And so the student got a chance. They spent about 45 minutes chatting with Russ Feingold as a result of this. Now, did I think it was somewhat of a shot in the dark? Yeah, actually I did. But I was really cool when the student got a response and realized that Russ Feingold, who had recently left office at that point, was going to sit down and chat with that student and give them incredible perspective. And then you've got a personal interview to cite in that speech that, again, nobody else will have. You don't even have to reach that far to a senator or former senator, even local government officials. What's cool about this also is there's another big benefit, and that is that it creates an investment in the speech and debate program locally. It connects to other people who can also be supportive of speech and debate. So Russ Feingold, who actually was a member of the NFL back in the day, which is I think part of the reason why he was interested in helping out, he was a student member of the National Forensic League. And we still have his card, in fact, in the national office. But I think the bigger issue there is that you have an opportunity to say, would you support our local speech and debate program? We have a student who's interested in a topic, they need your expertise, would you be willing to sit down with them and talk to them about this topic. And then help the student, if you get the interview, help the student. Generate a whole bunch of questions, more than you'll ever need, and then have that student sit there and ask all of those questions. I was with the student when Russ Feingold met with him. I encourage you to go with the student, make that connection, because after the student's done with that speech, that could be a connection for a future speech. Or if that person says, actually, there's somebody else you should be talking to. And you can't do it in person, but you can do it by phone. So Russ Feingold saying there's actually another person who is a researcher, an aide, who I can connect you with. You won't be able to meet with them in person, they're in DC, but they would be more than happy. I'll make the connection by cell phone. And so we got that person's number, and so we called this expert in DC who was part of a think tank. Led to another great connection. Now that person knows about speech and debate. Now that person is with you, right? And if you can do this at the local or regional level, you have other people going, hey, how did that student do? You know, I was talking to another person I know, and their kid was going into junior high school. Are there any opportunities for speech and debate at junior high? And you can say, I don't know, but I'm going to talk to Dino, this guy who came to speak. He would know. And yes, in fact, the National Speech and Debate Association does have middle school chapters, and you can create a middle school program, and it's half the cost of the high school program. And so you can develop things at the middle school level as well as at the high school level. So I would carry on that conversation with you, make that connection. My point is that the interview helps the student learn more about the topic, but it also establishes a local or area connection who can benefit the program and benefit the support of that program for the long haul. If they're invested in it, if they ask, how did the student do at the last tournament? And you can say, oh, they got a 25 out of 25. That person goes, oh, that's awesome. Maybe there's another way that I can help another student of yours. Let's make some additional connections. And then, obviously, this is beneficial to the student, right? If they're really jazzed about the topic, which they should be committed and passionate about, if you've had that dialogue with them and you've connected them with that expert, then maybe that leads to an internship opportunity. Maybe that leads to a scholarship at a university. Maybe it lends itself to a field of study or invitation to go to a laboratory environment and make a connection with a scientist who then sparks a STEM moment in them where they're now excited to go and study the sciences at Simpson College or somewhere else. So my point is there are so many layers of benefit, and all it costs is an email, a phone call. If they say, no, I'm sorry, we can't help, but have the student do it. Have a high school student call and say, I'd really like to speak with you about a topic, or I'd like to speak with your supervisor about a topic that's really important to me, and I understand that they have expertise that can help my speech. I mean, how many people are going to turn down a high school student who is earnest and interested in the topic? You know? Now maybe they have to cry a little, I don't know. But whatever it is, I have seen so many different success stories on so many different levels. I had a student who was passionate about the topic of gerrymandering, district, and it's very popular again. And we did that speech 5 years ago, but it's very popular now again. Who controls where the boundary lines are for voting? This is a very relevant, important topic. If you have a student who's interested in politics, power in politics, the influence of minority status among voting blocks, that's an important topic. It's one that they might be interested in researching, and there are all kinds of people they could connect to. And they can even talk to folks in the local courthouses and local offices and find out how lines are drawn by courts or by the legislature. It should be objective, but we know it's not. And so they redraw these lines every 10 years. So they learn about census, they learn about how boundary lines are politicized and all of that good stuff. So I think it's a way of taking the activity that we all love to work on, making it personal, making it effective, helping students make those connections, and also build rapport and connections with other people. So that's sort of the spiel part, but I'd love to find out what kinds of questions or comments you all have about the ways that you identify significant speech topics and how you can help students make those kinds of connections. Yeah.
I think my students just feel overwhelmed with everything out there and trying to get them to narrow in on topics. What do you recommend for that as far as strategies that you give them? Because they'll go out, and I don't want to just tell them, here, do this. I really want them to choose their own topic. They will if I tell them to do this, they'll do it.
Sure.
But I want what kind of strategies or things can I give the students to really help them narrow in on the topic that they want to do.
If you don't have time for the interview side to really burrow down and find out what they're interested in, you might even have them fill out a one-pager, a simple handout, or fill out a Google form. and that just ask them really targeted questions. What are the kinds of interests that you have? What are your hobbies? What social or political issues do you care about? If they say none, then say, well, do you care about, gender inequality? Do you care about, I've had a student who was really conservative who said, I don't understand why it is that women have all of these rights, but men have no rights. And you chuckle, right? And you go, whoa, you've got so much to learn. But you can turn that and say, well, actually, you know what, there are, interestingly enough, there are men's rights movements. There are masculinist movements. What if you were to do an informative or persuasive speech about those kinds of movements and why they have formed in response to other movements? So you can turn it into an educational opportunity, but you have to get at what they're most interested in first. And to me, it's that survey, it's the interview that says, what are you really interested in? So I made a commitment because this is my first year at Simpson, and I told the director of the program, my commitment is, instead of saying, here's a nice prose piece, here is a nice whatever, literary program that I want you to do, that I would sit down with every student, interview them, find out what they're passionate about, and then go after content that helps them. And it's working so far. Not every student jumps on the right topic immediately. I've had to make some interesting suggestions for certain students to kind of get to where they want to be. But I found that interview to be vitally important, and now they all have buy-in because it's something they actually care about. I had one student who I finally got to the issue that he just wanted to do something funny. I'm like, okay, so tell me what your sense of humor is like. So he tells me. Well, what about somebody who does political or social commentary? And would that be interesting? And so we ended up going to a book written by Denis Leary. And if you know who Denis Leary is, he's kind of got a filthy mouth, right, in this book. And so I said, this has the style of humor that you're talking about, but he actually makes a really serious point about a variety of different things. So the piece that he's doing right now is a section from his book, and it's about bullying. And it's about the fact that he stood up to a bully. And so the argument that we're making in the introduction to this intern piece is, look at how the reactions we have to cyberbullying compared to traditional notions of bullying, where you could stand up to the bully. What happens in the piece is he kicks him in the you-know-what, and then he drops like a fly, and all of a sudden the power of the bully is demystified, and he goes crawling off, and never to mess with that group again. And he's sort of the hero. He's the hero of the nerds because he had enough guts to kick him where it hurts. And then they develop respect. But the question that we're posing is what does this mean for a world where cyberbullying is taking place, where you can't really hit them you know where, but instead reflect on how we used to deal with bullies and what can we learn from that and apply to today's notion of what bullying means. So redefining bullying. I realize that's a little bit of a stretch, but the student, it started with, I want to do a funny piece, okay? What kind of humor? Really biting, satirical, like nasty humor, okay? Let me see. Well, let me think about comedians or personalities who have written books who have that kind of sense of humor. Denis Leary came to my mind, and this was born. I have no idea how it's going to do. We haven't taken it out yet. He's not particularly talented. He's probably going to get his butt kicked. But the point is, he's doing something that he actually cares about, and it was a student who sat across from me and said, I have no idea, I don't care, I don't really want to do anything. And we got to this point where at least he's excited and telling his friends, I'm going to do a piece where I get to kick somebody in the you-know-what, right? And that's a starting place. And it's helped to get, I think we've gotten him to a good place, and if I can keep him committed to speech and debate, then that's a great step in the right direction. I have scholarship students also who are rip-roaring, ready to go, they know what they want to do and all of that. I'm talking about the student who was told this is a good activity for them, much like you often get in high school, but they have no idea what they want to do and they act like they don't care. You can get there with them if you have a good interview and a good dialogue. I probably over-answered that question, but I just really feel like it's about the personal connection in the interview. And I'm going to give you my card. If you do have any students who you're looking for that kind of interp material, or you're looking for that kind of topic or whatever, but you've got something to work with, please let me know. I've been doing this activity for 25 years. I've encountered all kinds of material, and I'm more than happy to make some suggestions to you to help you find the right fit for that. I realize this is not an interp session, but a lot of you coach interp too, and you've got to try to find that impossible piece And the easy thing to do, right, is to reach in that file and pull out that piece and go, here, do this. And I appreciate that role, and if you've got 50 kids to work with, sometimes that's the solution. But at the same time, if you have some time, maybe you can develop some of those kinds of strategies. Yeah.
Are there any topics that you have found that you just try to get kids to totally stay away from? Or is it kind of like, if it's done well enough, you're okay with whatever?
I have a serious conversation with students about controversy, what that means, and if you pick a topic or piece that is particularly sensitive. So if it has adult language or adult situations or something like that, and it's a particularly conservative circuit, then I will talk to them about what this means. And I'll say, if you really believe in it, if you're 100% behind it, then if I approve it, we'll let it go. But please understand that this may result in a lower rating or a bottom rank. And it may be that the judge's only comment is, I hate this piece, I can't stand this topic, it's too polarizing or whatever. But I have a dialogue in which I say, if you're willing to accept the risk, I'm willing to go on the journey with you if you feel that your message is that important. But that comes with several caveats. You know, offending just for the sake of offending, for example, is not acceptable. Taking a stand on something that just is not going to produce any good net result, I also will not support. There was a student, for example, and this was in a public speaking class, where the student said, I would like to use the R word, retard. And I said, that's a very, very loaded word. What do you want to use that for? And he had a particular purpose. He wanted to use it basically for a shock value. I said, I think this is a bad idea. I really think this is a bad idea. You're going to give this speech about psychological ailments. You're going to use this word, and the class is going to turn against you. And he said, no, I think it's really important. We call, basically, it was a precursor to Trump, right? We're going to need to call a spade a spade. And so he was determined to use it. And sure enough, that's the one word every single student in the class said, you know, it was a good speech, but I'm so bothered by this word. And he kept defending it and defending it and losing and losing. And I said, you just lost your audience. You didn't adapt to it. All people are talking about is the R word instead of what the whole point of your speech was psychological ailments. Like, how did we miss that part? Because that's what you really wanted to teach people, but you were insisted on the hook. So I didn't think the benefit was good. So it was a risk, but is that a beneficial risk? No, it would not be a beneficial risk, I don't think. So you have to have those kinds of conversations too. But as long as they are making smart choices, it's an informed risk, and it's one that they still want to try. I'm still with the students in wanting to try it. And obviously, you all have to be careful not to bother parents, and you got to know your community, and you got to know your administrators, right? The NSDA, the National Speech and Debate Association, now has a form that the coach and the principal has to sign before you go to the district qualifying tournament that says that the pieces that my student is doing reflect the community standards.
Ooh.
Why? Because we have had administrators who find out after the fact that students from their school are doing something that may upset somebody. Now, I'm not talking about doing something that might offend a conservative viewpoint, for example. I'm talking about, and this is the classic example that the situation called for. There was a student who did as a humorous interpretation piece, Debbie Does Dallas. Taking the porno flick and making it a comedy routine.
Wow.
So taking the lines, which if you look at the lines in isolation are funny, right? In some ways. But oh my gosh, you're doing Debbie Does Dallas.
High school?
No. Oh yeah, actually yes, it is high school. Yeah, it's not college, it was high school. High school. Made it all the way to the final round stage. Debbie Does Dallas. If you all join and you get the team resource package, which I will help you to acquire if you decide to join as your school, you will have the opportunity to see the performance of Debbie Does Dallas. This should not be your reason for membership. But it created the dialogue. And again, yes, it's funny, but when the principal of a school finds out that a student from that high school did that piece, can you imagine the political fallout for that program? Yeah, but we're just making fun of it. Excuse me. You took a pornographic film and performed it at a national tournament under my high school's name? Do you think that's okay with the parents? So it's led to a forum where the principal knows what the nature of the pieces are, at least the names of the pieces, and understands what's being done, so that there is another layer of responsibility. Now, I know you don't all want micromanagement at that level, but it's an awareness piece. And it's part of the day and age that we live in, is being able to respond to and justify. So a reason I added that on, again, another long answer to a simple question, but I added that on because it has to be a smart choice, not just a choice because the student wants to do it. It has to be informed, and I do think that's something you want to give a heads up to your administrator about. I had a student who approached me just 2 weeks ago at the college. I'd never encountered this before, but we have a health form that you can fill out before you go to tournaments. Student said, instead of filling out the health form, I thought I would explain to you what I'm going through. I have dissociative identity disorder, multiple personalities. And I said, okay. There's a lot of questions I have, and I know that I'm not legally allowed to ask them. So instead, I'm going to say, if you wish to answer these questions, if you wish to inform me of these so that I can better help you to find appropriate performance, then let's have a dialogue, but if not, that's okay too. But understand, it would help to understand. So I asked a whole bunch of questions about her triggers, about her personality. She has 9 of them. I said, what happens if Agnes comes out? Agnes is the 8-year-old. What happens if Agnes comes out during a performance? And an 8-year-old starts talking in the middle of a speech. And so I said, that gives me a little anxiety. I'd like to, have a further conversation about this. Bottom line, moral of the story is, she's doing research on her disorder, and then she is doing a speech about dissociative identity disorder, an informative speech. And she is going to use elements of her own diagnosis and elements of her own personalities in the speech, with the understanding up front as a trigger warning that if, during the speech, I may pop into basically another person, and that it's going to be okay. And here's how to pull me out of it. It'll be used as an educational tool, basically. And I think we could actually take that to Rotary clubs, we can take it to other organizations, if she's willing to have her talk about her condition so that we have a better understanding. Because I think most people assume it's either made up, and there may be some people in this room who are like, oh, that's a bunch of crap. My instinct is, this can't be real, can it? But in talking to her therapist, I have come to the realization that this is actually real. The person who's working with her specializes in this condition, and this is a condition that she has. We have 2 students on the team with dogs, service dogs. We have to take those to a tournament. One of them is a Labrador Retriever, used for medical purposes. Why am I mentioning this? Here's a possibility for a speech topic that could be meaningful, but also you have issues, right? You have privacy issues and FERPA issues and all that good stuff. But also the kinds of students and the nature of student conditions and their willingness to talk about it has changed pretty dramatically from the days when I competed, when you were told to suck it up. Right?
Right.
Settle down, pay attention, or get kicked out of school was pretty much the solution at that point. And I don't know about your parents, but my parents would have kicked me in the butt before, and believed the teacher as opposed to supporting me and assuming that I was right about something. They would take the opposite approach and say behave. So there's a whole host of issues that you can get into that are significant topics that are interesting to explore. So that you have contact information for me. Feel free to follow up with me on any of the topics we talked about, membership in the NSDA, college scholarships. It does not have to just be for Simpson College. Obviously, this is a free commercial for me, but I will answer honestly questions about any college speech and debate program across the country that your students might be interested in, what their focal points are, what kinds of scholarships they have. So I just want you to be able to use me as a valuable resource for that. So I'll hand out a couple more things.